So let me introduce our speakers. Let me welcome Tatiana Lemoň, CEO of Google, Czech Republic. Welcome, Tanya. Nice to see you. Dobrý den. The next guest, Milan Vašina, T-Mobile, Slovak Telecom. Milan, welcome. Dobrý den. Michal Pichouček, Czech Technical University in Prague. Good day to you, sir. Dobrý den. And Daniel Franz from the Google company. Daniel, welcome. Last but not least, Honza Zadák, private investor, entrepreneur. Hello. So I'm really glad that we all are here. Let me just sit maybe somewhere where all can see you. You have water. Okay, do you have microphones? Perfect. Guys, our topic today is leadership in turbulent times, Leadership 2.0. And my kickoff question for all of you, and you can maybe open your speech with it, is what are the main challenges that managers have to deal with nowadays from your perspective? How do you see it? So who would like to start? Tatiana, who would like to start?
Hello, thank you for having us. Main challenges, well, I believe humanity is one of the absolute challenges we're facing in terms of really understanding what it is and protecting humanity. Second challenge, I would say, is a complexity. The world around is changing very much, and we need to be able to handle issues in a completely different way. And that complexity itself is a trigger for learning a lot of new skills. I believe we will need to learn pretty quickly in order to make sure the world is being developed in a positive way. So I would say humanity, complexity, and maybe last keyword I would like to use is values, integrity. I really believe that the future leaders should be human, with high level of integrity and well equipped to manage challenges resulting from high level of complexity in the world today.
Thank you. Gentlemen, would you like to maybe give a follow-up?
Let me start from the other side. Good afternoon. Certainly fully agree with Tanya. A few things I would add is you're increasingly doing decisions without knowing all the facts. You simply do not know what you don't know. The things are moving so fast today in the world that you're bound to be making decisions based on incomplete set of information, and you have to make a decision to a certain degree. So this unknown and complexity of unknown things is just a real world. The other one is, we tend to kind of keep on moving where the crowd is going, and not very often we are exercising our own judgment. And I think leaders are poised to be making a lot of judgment in the future based on a more certain complex set of assumptions across different dimensions. And we do need skills, whether that's area of humanity, psychology, technical area of the line of business we are responsible for. And we will have to keep on moving our capability to be making judgments based on those our own interpretation of the facts and the knowledge that we have in a cognitive way of thinking.
Thank you. Yes, Milan.
From my perspective, I think I agree with what was said, but in terms of that complexity and that, I think what is extremely important for the leaders in the future now is really to clearly describe the vision in the context. That's something which the people do not understand. It's something which the people will be looking for, and they have to, if they would follow, they have to really understand the full context as such. And what I think what will be extremely important is a quite of the strong empowerment, which goes with the trust and the risk-taking which you have to give to the people, and which you would like to then make and manage the organizations as such. So just to complement what was said.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, so I would just give a +1 to what the people said here about complexity. And I got reminded by the gentleman from IBM. Actually, IBM did research a few years ago when they asked CEOs what they see as the biggest challenge. And more than 50% of them said managing complexity. So like, I think we'll get to it a little bit later, but one of the steps to managing complexity means to dance on the border between chaos and order. Actually, the organizations that can do that are called chaotic organizations, not chaotic, chaotic, chaos and order. And for that, the leadership means that you have to do something pretty differently from before, meaning like moving the decision-making to pretty much to the ground, letting emergence happen, supporting many unprogrammed interactions, let's say. Turns out we can learn a lot from nature, like from ants, but it also turns out that half of us don't know how to do that. So.
Okay, fair enough. Michal, yes?
Everything that was said here, I totally subscribe for. And I was kind of thinking, what else is typical for the leaders of the future? And I actually think that one of the biggest requirements for the leaders of the future will be a requirement for empathy. Leaders will need to be substantially more empathic than they are today. They need to be able to understand people they work with, they work for. The equation that reports work for the manager will change. It's actually changing even these days that the manager pretty much works for the people. So he would need to really spend time understanding the people, but not only people, also algorithms. So there'll be like this very strange expectation that the leader is there and who understands what people do, how people think, what they want, how they can help. But equally, the manager, the leader needs to understand how the algorithm think, what they want and how they act. And we would require from leaders to be able to kind of bring together AI and people in efficient and mutually respectable ways. So I think the empathy will be like one of the big requirements when corporations would be recruiting for leaders. The second one is the capability to learn, because given the speed and the complexity and the scale, leader needs to be able to learn better, quicker, faster than the others, which would kind of make him leader in the end, and be able to argue for his opinion in like very constructive, data-orientated way. The time when leader wants something to happen, and if it doesn't happen, he starts firing. This is also old school. This, that's not the way how we lead, right? So we would need to kind of make sure that people understand what is the vision, what we want to achieve, and what are the mechanisms and means for that. And the last piece is cross-science. I'm a big believer that interesting opportunities will be in between of domains, and it will be expected of a leader to be able to exhibit cross-domain thinking. I actually think this is like super important. And cross-domain thinking often leads to like generalism, so that the leader is supposed to be a generalist. It's actually not the truth. The leader needs to have an experience with having gone deeper in some subject before. So.
Okay. A lot of things has been said, but I would repeat maybe 3 words that were kind of in a different variation said here, which is complexity, values, and empathy. And I would like to start from this, because this is very difficult demand for a manager, because as the pace of innovation is constantly increasing, as corporate is thinking in the language of science, in the language of numbers, it is very difficult to be empathic and maintain values, to be driven by different values, so to say, that are common today for a company. What to make of it? How to incorporate these 3, so to say, values as complexity, empathy, and value? Yes, please, Daniel.
So maybe I'll take the chance to kick off this discussion. So my role is managing a global collaboration program. So this is a pretty big challenge. Like, how do you work with people of different value set? The key here is taking the word empathy, what the folks here said, and understand what is the values that really connect us. What are maybe 2, 3, 4 values, and everything else we have to understand that different people may value differently. But you cannot do that without the empathy, also like self-empathy or self-knowing, like knowing you as leader, knowing your program, what is important for your program, and just maybe the 3 or 4 pieces, and let everything else go. Because if you sort of insist on your value model, I can tell you I've last week met people from Singapore to Peru. They are not the same, but they are all connected by some key values that you as a leader can help maintain in the collaboration.
Such as, can you give example maybe?
Yeah, so for example, the values in the program I met, it's about collaboration, it's about learning, it's about sharing. So I have actually people from, and that was very amazing to see last week, they were sitting at one table, people from 2 nations which are having an active war with each other right now. I mean, maybe their brothers and fathers are killing each other, but they were sitting not exactly at the same table, but at a panel like this. And because they value those values which are important for them, and they give maybe the same meaning to them, they were able to find a common language. Like, to me, this is the ultimate victory of, I would say, like, values which can transcend even warring nations.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Tanya?
It's a very interesting example from the global perspective. Maybe I can give mine from business perspective in regards to how we work with complexity in the business space. Yes. So, number one thing would probably be we're learning to look at things from different perspectives, more than we used to like 10 years ago. So that's why diversity in the teams is so important. And I'm not only talking gender diversity, I'm talking education diversity, age diversity, really different backgrounds diversity. Because when you have diverse teams, it helps you to look at things from different perspectives. Hence, understand the system, that complex system that you're dealing with. So this is very important, especially a lot of our clients are having business all around the globe. Yeah, so we need to be able to help them in like 40 different countries. So we need to be able to address different perspectives. That's number one. Number two is very much related to ability to ask the right questions. And that's something what at least my generation didn't really learn at school. We learned to memorize a lot and learn a lot of facts. But still today, I believe the primary purpose of the school should be to teach children, kids, to ask questions. So constantly asking why, not only what and how, but why, is very, very important for us in the business to really understand the client's perspective. And the third one, and that goes very much to what Michal Piechowczyk was saying on empathy. Empathy is a skill of emotional intelligence. So third area for us in business is about building great relationship with people from different cultures, different religions, different states, different languages. So building great personal relations, even with the distance between you, and that is to a large extent emotional intelligence skills. So these 3 things, looking at things from different perspectives, asking questions, and building great relationships is how we learn to deal with complexity on the business side.
Maybe if I just may follow Tanya, I'm a big supporter of the emotional intelligence in work organizations, but when I was mentioning my comment, I meant that the challenge will be to be able to put together empathic leadership together with the data-oriented leadership. Just like really, this will be the future, people who can do both things at the same time. To your question on complexity, I've been working in a number of corporations in my past life, and my experience is that the attitude towards risk is static. And I think that people are going to need to understand the risk differently at different situations, different time, different lifespans of the organization that they work for, different market situation, just differently. And I actually think that the complexity will be enriched by yet another domain, and this is the risk. So people need to take the risk as the opportunity, while at many different corporations that I have the experience to work with was that people tend to minimize risk and leaders also tended to minimize risk. And I think that in the future, leaders will be rewarded based on how well do they understand risk and how do they translate the risk into their leadership.
Thank you that you said it, because I would like to give the perspective from the real organizations in the Czech or Slovak, and it's exactly that you said this is the key challenge, or there will be the key challenges. Because many of the companies are currently established, I'm representing the telco industry, so we have been really running quite nicely and perfectly 20 years ago, but there were several phases, of the changes. And I think that exactly to manage it in a way, and the transformation in a way that you will be able to have the risk-taking, you will be able to have manage the complexity, and that in the same time the empathy, it's something which are the values which are at the end of the day the filter, what do you do and what is exactly your management base. And I think it's a huge challenge, frankly speaking, because there is a lot of the innovative companies, small startups, the companies where you have up to 100 people, and it's not so difficult from the management point of view and to do the fast transformation like you have a bigger corporation when you have to really change it in a proper way. That's why what I mentioned in the beginning, also it's extremely important that the leaders would give the context, who show why they do the change, what they are looking for, what is the context today, tomorrow, and the 3 years after, and where we are aiming. Because at the end of the day, there will be still a lot of the people who lived in the situation, in the past, but now they will be still working for additional 10, 20 years, and that's why they have to understand, where it's moving, and and the leaders, they have to give them the guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me totally agree. I would re-emphasize Michal's, setting the vision, setting expectations, Milan's as well. One area that is extremely important is be able to motivate people. Not many months ago, I've been leading a team with 75,000 people. You cannot be sitting behind the back of 75,000 people and watching every second what they do and how they do it and what they do, what they should be doing. So you constantly think about how you motivate the team, how you motivate to do the right thing at the right time with the right objective. And also you want to unleash the innovation in the team, because the corporations, whether like it or not, they tend to be very slow, very aristocratic in the sense of processes and different way of thinking and cultural aspects. Yet you need the speed, otherwise you will be just thrown away out of the competitive bandwagon by the competition. And here, in my view, the motivation takes place. You really want your team to come in the morning fully charged with looking forward. Today I can contribute to a project. We can do something that is meaningful for the society, that is meaningful for our customer, that is meaningful for the employees. And you have to apply the right level of risk and budget, of course, to unleash that innovation and that motivation as well. Also, on the other side, in the risk management, we as leaders have a responsibility for doing the right things for the society. We have obligations to stand by the law, which is equally requiring a certain set of leadership. You simply, if you get you are a CEO of a bank, you get a letter from the national bank which requires you to do something in 90 days. You simply do not have too much time for dancing. You have to go and apply certain skills to get things done, in the absence of just, this is where you need to get to in the 90 days. So let me repeat it. Vision, totally clear. Your ability to motivate people with the right things, with the right motions, critical things. But at the same time, do not let your responsibility run away from you, because you're gonna be held accountable as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, I really like the topic of motivation. And by the way, I'm pretty humbled by the experience of my co-panelists, which each is leading a company. I am in a somewhat more adventurous situation as I'm leading volunteers, like people who would do it anyway, who do it without money, right? Turns out that the elements of, let's say, community leadership are super applicable to the company management. Like you mentioned the word contribution, like people need to contribute to something which is meaningful. That's one of the 3 things which actually get volunteers to do stuff for free, in their free time, because they can contribute to something. So if we as leaders can show them, this is the contribution, this is your little piece of ownership. If somebody here is developing open source, actually you contribute a little piece of code, but it's signed by you. You contribute it to something meaningful. There are 2 more things which work for us in the community leadership. One is the sense of belonging, meaning I belong to this family. Even in Google, right, we call each other Googlers, and there is a strong feeling of community anytime you go to. I feel it pretty strongly. Sometimes people think I'm fanatic, like why do you wear Google t-shirts all the time? But this is my family. And the second one is empowerment, or third one in this context, meaning like if I contribute to this big cause in the family I care about, how do I grow? I mean, like, it's nice to see the stock rising, right? And the managers say, okay, team, let's work together so that stakeholders are happy. Well, how does that make me happy, right? And when we look to complexity, having people who are motivated, not because of what you tell them, but because they belong, they get better, they contribute, I mean, your job is done. You don't need to motivate anyone.
Mm-hmm. To follow up on your thoughts, so I see value-based leadership is the right leadership, right? It's a collective result of how people on a team think and behave, and the results, it will be probably, as you are saying, it's a good thing. But how do I incorporate it in the employees? How do I talk to employees? Can I be a good leader in the system? Whereas you said, you are not prepared to ask those questions. You are not prepared to come with the values. You are prepared to learn from school, and then you come as an employee, and then you get your value-based leadership. So how these 2 things are incorporated, and whether you've noticed in your company culture that maybe it transformed the organizational culture that when the value-based leadership was applied, and the second maybe is whether these values you should talk about them all the time in your company, or it gets sometimes counterproductive. That's the double kind of question. So whether value-based leadership transforms organizational culture, and if it's too much of value-based leadership in a company, especially if we are talking about a huge corporate, like Google. So who would like to start maybe?
Let me give it just 1 second. Speed and agility is something you as a leader actually define for the organization. I'll give you an example. I told my 75,000 people when I started my first job, whoever sends me an email will get a reply within 48 hours. I never failed. There were days I got 700 emails, but I never failed. You simply have to figure out a way of standing by what you say, because then you can expect the organization to do the same. You as a leader are the first one who defines the culture of the organization, and do not pretend it's not the case. You are the soul of the culture of the organization because you define the way you want the organization to behave. That's where you start.
If I may chip into what Andres just said, I totally subscribe here, and I think that the value-based leadership is an important aspect for a leader to be able to build a reputation, because in this super uncertain and super fast world, even like great leader will just not be able to accomplish what he kind of planned for and what he was bringing to people to follow him and to accomplish together. And the value-based leadership is there for the leader to help him to set the frame, how he acted, why he acted, and how things ended up in the end. And as a result of which, is not only an accomplishment-based kind of back analysis, but is the combination of what has happened plus what the values were, what the objectives were, and this kind of builds the credibility of the leader, because in the end the leader needs to have a credibility. As you said, it's no longer that I'll pay your paycheck and you do what as I say. It's much more like I want you to contribute. Are you with me on the board? And if I was able to deliver, or if I was able in the past to stand to my values and act in an uncertain environment with the proper course, it would make me a credible leader, otherwise not.
And just about the culture and about the leadership, as you mentioned, I think it's what you said. It's true, 100% true, because you are the soul of the culture, and you are basically developing it. And only what I would like to comment on that is that I really make time to make sure that I see every manager in the company, yeah, at least for the 30 minutes when recruiting. And I think it's extremely important to do the recruiting right, and that you understand, not only because I'm making the decision about the people, not at all. This is really up to the manager. But really to say what are my expectations, because I am the boss, to say what are the expectations of the company, to say what I really, if I come back to you, what I expect, how you will talk and manage your people, because it works on both ways. And this is for me extremely important, basically to say to the people that I need the supporters, I need to align people who are able really to communicate and put it up, and to say them also that and I don't know the English word, traviče vody, yeah? So basically those who are poisoning the rest of the company, they should be out, yeah? Because then it's really helping you at the end of the day to formulate a lot and give the framework to them.
I think maybe two more words to add to this from my side would be purpose and passion. I believe if you want to attract really top talent and greatest people, you need to be a leader that not only has a vision to build the greatest business in the world, but the KPIs, the measurement, the attributes of the measurement of the success cannot be just revenues and dollars. And that's exactly what Dan was mentioning about. I believe people are looking simply for more than that. They're looking for purpose, for values-driven, purpose-driven vision. I think it's more important for the future than it has been in the past, that the top leaders will have to not only be passionate about what they're doing, but they need to care about their people, they need to care about their countries, they need to care about this planet. And I believe this is what's going to be expected. And once you get such a leader, you have this energy that motivates people, because that's exactly what people want to follow. So that's what I believe is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There is a question from the audience, quite connected to what I wanted to ask. There is a question: how can technology help to stimulate or create the new generation of leaders, or can it at all? Yeah.
Well, I just spoke, so go.
Okay.
So I think you're like in a similar way as robotics can help in like a manual work, can help the nurses to care about the patients. So in the same way, AI can help you guys think, right? To be able to get like next level of creativity through being able to get an access to data, to hypothesis, to the relationship between data, to be able to parse data in totally different way that humans are unable to parse. For example, the smartest guys are the scientists, because because they read the scientific papers. But how many of scientific papers they can read a day? Like one in maximum. How many there are? Like hundreds of thousands. Nobody can read them all. And AI can be there to read the papers for us and to kind of work with the humans to kind of collaborate and provide yet another unprecedented level of creativity. That's what I believe in.
Maybe quick comment. I believe future leaders will need to understand, to some extent, technology. They will really at least need to understand the trends. So if I would give an example, 20 years ago, the board of directors would probably not have internet or technology person sitting on the board. I believe it's very important nowadays that when the management takes the decision, it's a qualified decision as well from technology perspective, from trends perspective, because their job will be to understand exactly what the technology can do for them, so that they create teams that are a great combination of technology and people.
Yeah, I think Tatiana just hit it. We all as leaders, we lead businesses that one way or the other will be disrupted by someone else who's using technology differently or in a new way. It is what it is. Yeah, I'll give you an example. In JP Morgan was a great example of where you use AI or robotics or automation in a white-collar world. They put together a software called Coin, which does credit scoring. It reads all of the credit contracts and it says it's okay. No, a lawyer needs to look at it. 90% is going through clear decision, and they could disembark 100 lawyers out of the legal team. It's not just the blue-collar world that gets automated or robotized. Every business will be disrupted, every business. If a leader doesn't understand technology or the association what technology means, can do for your business, I can assure there will be someone else doing the same business differently that will compete and provide better answer to your customers in a more efficient way, and your business will get disruptive. That's where I believe Tatiana absolutely hit the nail, which is the leader should understand what technology means to his or her business.
And I just wanted to comment basically what was said. I really think that the technology will create the leaders, because this is exactly where the people who understand the technology and that they are there. But what is now important, I think the fastest companies will be if they are the bosses, today's bosses, who really see those people and really take them up with this empathy, emotional intelligence, as well as the technology intelligence. They will be created, no way. The question is, who will and how fast will do it.
So all of this, I totally can sign it. The AI, robots, virtual assistants making phone calls on your behalf, all that will definitely disrupt what we are doing. At the same time, I think sometimes we forget that the technology is here that can very much change the leadership style of us. And I have one particular technology in mind, and that's video conferencing, doing like audio-video phone calls. If you really embrace that already existing technology, you can change your leadership style. You no longer need to manage people in-house. You can have them scattered all around the world. But then it means also that your hiring will change, your management style will change. You will need to release a little bit of your power, because God knows we know what my people are doing now in India. I have no idea, right? So that's already changing the leadership style using very simple AV technology. Or you can use the technology of real-life chat, whether it's Slack or Google Hangouts or you name it. Again, like that changes the access to information, that changes the flow of let's say, inspiration and influence from the bottom. I mean, like, Sophia, with due respect, we have stuff already happening here and now that all of us can embrace, and I would definitely love seeing more examples of that.
Mm-hmm. Michal?
If I may, just a side note, we are kind of targeting this question like from two different perspectives. How technology can help leaders to become a better leader, and whether the leader needs to understand technology. These are like two different questions. And the second one really relates to being able to predict. We just want from a leader to tell us what is going to happen, right? So that he understands the future than the others do. And without understanding the technology and where the technology goes, this is just impossible. So I think that leaders in most of the organizations will be required to understand technology pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There is another question that appeared just now, and it is related. It is leadership on scale, basically. And the question is, in the political turbulence we are seeing, or not political, let's say economic pace increase we are seeing on the global stage today, what role are the big companies and their leaders going to play? What role are the leaders going to play in huge companies that are getting bigger and bigger? How can you lead on scale? How can you lead in ever-increasing pace and be there for your employees?
Well, definitely. So if I can read it through political turbulence, we are seeing in the global stage today what are all the big companies leading. I think the big companies are just having enormous influence on the whole society. If you take companies who are managing budgets which are practically surpassing GDPs of some of the smaller countries, they are setting the stage of innovation, defining where innovation is going, defining how the innovation is applied in the economy. Also, they are responsible towards society, towards the nature, towards the creation and preservation of natural resources. It's unbelievable. Take today also the moral standards. I mean, today the technology enables that everything is completely transparent in a second across the globe. Take the Cambridge Analytica example just recently. Just 10 years ago, that thing would be probably somewhere bubbling for a year. It was up in the air within 60 minutes globally, with a completely devastating impact to a certain stage of businesses. I think companies just play enormous amount, and the leaders of the companies have enormous responsibility for where we are going as a humankind, where we are going as a nation, where we are going as a society.
Yeah, very important question. As they say, with a great job or success comes a huge responsibility, and I am lucky to work for the company that actually started 20 years ago with the claim that says "Don't be evil," and that believed and still believes that organizing the world information and make it universally accessible and useful to everyone on this planet is a great achievement of a human and technology progress we see. Saying that, the world has changed a lot, and it's changing a lot. Not only that, it's changing very fast. And we are facing in the global space some very important questions to which we still, I believe, don't have an answer. You have terms such as privacy, you have terms such as freedom of speech. All this is having an impact on our values, how we behave and how we think. And if you start having a conversation on some of these questions on different continents, you're going to hear a different answer. So that's why actually when I started this panel, I mentioned humanity, I mentioned integrity and values, because this, I believe, is fundamental discussion. What we're doing for that, and I believe I'm not only speaking for Google here, I speak for, I can see many global companies are reaching each other in the dialogues. It's industry dialogues, it's a dialogues with users, with businesses, with governments, because we all need to reach out some sort of global idea in regards to what is the world we want to be living. So what I'm trying to say here is that we understand those are important questions and we are very engaged to address them.
If I may, I think that's the way how the leaders of big internet companies are behaving today will be changing. There'll be trend towards more and more responsibility in the future that will be proportional to the amount of power that will be residing in those hands. And the truth is, there'll be like two important people, politicians and the leaders at technological companies. And sooner or later, like lots of technological advantage and power and the capability to make a decision and to drive the humanity will be more in the technological companies rather than in the hands of politicians, which I think and I believe would require the leaders to be more humble, to be more forthcoming, and to work with the rest of the society, because in the equilibrium will be the future. I actually give you one example. These days, I'm a scientist, I'm an AI scientist, I work now at the university. And in the US, the computer science departments are under attack. You know who is attacking them? Big technological companies. Uber came to Carnegie Mellon a couple of years ago and sucked out 40 scientists. That's a devastating attack on the department. And now companies are trying to understand this, and they are taking measures so that they keep the university sector kind of refreshing itself and to be able to produce the next generation of scientists and leaders. And they wouldn't need to do this. They could just go there and take all the talent from the universities that they want, and they can afford it. So I see this as an example of a trend that there will be like lots of responsibility on the leader of the big technology companies to behave responsibly and to create an equilibrium that will be working for the humanity.
Thank you. Okay. If we can go one step back to the topic of education and Czech education in particular, because we are in the Czech Republic at the moment, and it is the topic of educating leaders. We touched upon a topic that our schools are a bit rigid, a bit stale. It's very difficult to come to the workplace and become empathic and cherish all the values that companies try to, or demands from you, so to say. Should we start, we as a society, I mean, early with education of young leaders, or is it saying that you don't become leader, you are born leader, and it doesn't matter when you start actually practicing this mastery, so to say? So education, early or late or never, or it doesn't matter?
I think we should start, and I think, for example, we are talking about the industries and so on, at least on the universities, the dialogue, that the people who are from the businesses that are learning, there is a really, that there are case studies, there is a discussion about it, that you are preparing, I mean, the people what's coming from the either technology point of view and so on and so on. Because I'm doing some of the lectures in the universities, but I was also with the professors, and I was giving the information, you know, how the technology will change or telco industry can change. And I got the answer from the professors, we have to stop it. Yeah? Unfortunately, it's not possible to stop it, and I think what is extremely important, that at least from my perspective and what I see, that the people really also from the businesses start to make lectures, cases, and so on here, if we are talking specifically Czech or Slovak.
Michael?
You people know me, I'm a bit pessimistic about educational systems in the Czech Republic and in 99% of all the other countries. And the reason why is the case is because, you know, I'm not sure that we need to, at the elementary school, have a course for leaders. Again, I don't think we need that, but we need a course on creativity in every single grade of school and spend lots of time on creativity. And believe me, schools are not the most creative places on earth. They actually are not. And it's very difficult, you know, we have to pay teachers more. We have to triple their salaries. This is out of the question. But this by itself doesn't solve the problem. We just want creative people to be there with kids. And the only way how we can do this is to dramatically reduce the dominance of the educational system, to provide children more time to do more things, and for us as the rest of the society to place more responsibility on education and to volunteer and go back to schools and be with the kids and be creative. This is the only way how we can change that. There I think that like the big internet companies can start sending their engineers to schools, like each last Friday of the month, to be there with the kids and speak about them, about their code they are cutting at work. This would be disruptive. And without those changes and without reducing the dominance of the centralized, state-controlled approach to teaching, we won't be able to change education faster than the technological change will be changing across society.
So, two things. One is about, let's say, higher education, and I guess that will open a nice conversation we'll have afterwards. But some of the fields are evolving so fast that you need to have a different type of education. Maybe peer-to-peer education, maybe education from non-established institutions, which then makes an interesting interplay between the established institutions and, let's say, that's the art and the chaos coming from the grounds up. The other thing is, like, the words we used here were about empathy, about the ability to make decisions without needing to what my manager thinks. We were speaking about knowing what are my values so that I can know what values I don't need to instill in my program, etc. All this translates to, I think, two things, which at least the Czech educational system, as I know it, doesn't really grow, at least as a mainstream. So we are pretty good at technical skills, at knowing people how to compute, you know, how to say vyjmenovaná slova, whatever. But we don't do two things. One, soft skills. Like the empathy is one part of the soft skills. In our company, everybody collaborates, partly because we have to. Like, you don't achieve a goal as a leader or as a team member if you work on your own. To collaborate, you need to know how to communicate, how to listen, how to manage conflicts. All these are called soft skills. And finally, self-awareness. Who am I? You know, what are my values? What do I believe? There are not so many schools, elementary schools, which do that. And I would love to see that changing, not just in the Czech Republic, but around the world.
If I may just quickly respond, I agree with most of your points. I don't agree with the fact that we are good with the technical education. We suck there. This is like really, really bad. our kids don't understand data. And because they don't understand data, it means that they are making wrong decisions. And when kids don't understand data, then read their Facebook post from somebody, they go to the election polls and they vote wrongly, right? So I think that the technical capability to work with data, understand data, and also understand algorithms, what the algorithm is, what it can do, how algorithm is kind of manipulating me in better or worse way, this shall be taught at elementary school really early on. And the fact that we are not teaching this is kind of putting the civilization in jeopardy, I would say.
Thank you, Michael. There is one more question. Oh, no, there is a better question. Because there was about leaders and their ability to comply with moral standards, but there is appeared the role of women in the leadership, and I would like to touch upon this if it's here. What is the role of women in innovation? What should be done to empower women leadership in the world of technologies, which is quite low today? We all know that. Is that a relevant question for your discussion?
Definitely.
Please say yes. Thank you.
I'm definitely not a lady, but I will start. Someone has already mentioned diversity. You know, our technology world sucks. It's all white, man-dominated technology industry that lacks diversity. If you like diversity, you like creativity, just by design. You know, and I'm not talking diversity just on a sex side. I'm talking the diversity from a cultural point of view, from a geographic point of view. My experience on diversity is just superb. Anytime I have done certain measures to drive diversity into the team in all the dimensions you can imagine, the performance of the team, the responsibility, the teamwork, the collaboration, just skyrocketed exponentially. And it has to be driven by the leader. You know, if you just let it go, just as the nature goes, unfortunately, it typically converges to the most common very, I would say, underperforming set of team setup. So I'm a big believer in diversity, not just on the side, but I believe it's just a responsibility of the leader to go and take it and own it as a key leadership responsibility.
And what should be done in this?
I would say something like really controversial here. I think that women are better equipped for the jobs of the future. I actually think they are. And one of the, there are multiple reasons we can debate here, but the one which is, to me, like really important is that unlike men, they've got the experience with doing something important, then not working for a year or two, and then doing something else also very important, because they often do have this gap with kids. And I think that this is like, this makes them ready for the world in the future where nobody will keep one job for life. We would need to do multiple jobs because things would be changing. And I think that women are better equipped for this world where you need to do more things and start from scratch again and again and again, while men are more suited to kind of be the alpha male and climb the ladder of the corporation. So I think that we need women to be more involved.
Well, thank you. I'm sitting on the panel with gentlemen that are huge supporters of diversity and women in business and in the leadership. So thank you very much. But what I'd like to say is I believe what can women do is, I think, what men can do, which means, take action, be engaged, be interested, learn, and have ambition to maybe change a few things around you. I could mention Dita Přikrylová from Czechitas. I can mention Martina Břeňová from Kiwi. I can mention a lot of Senta Čermáková, head of innovation in Deloitte. I know so many great women in this industry. This industry needs women more than ever before because internet products are used from at least 50%, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, by women, by female audience. So we need female developers to actually design better products. But in general, we need women in leadership to make the world a better place. That's what I strongly believe in. Thank you.
Yeah, and the case for diversity, it's a business case. It's not a political case, as sometimes people think. Because, like, as you said rightly, it's been proven so many times that teams which have multiple perspectives, yes, it takes a little bit more time to discuss, but the result of that discussion is more valuable than, you know, if 4 guys make the same decision, right? That's a good thing. Actually, I found it a little bit funny, like this question, like Tanya, like we are the third to answer. I mean, like, yes, why not? But you are the only woman here on the panel. Like, I will very happily trade my spot for a woman here, because it's not that, you know, one type of people would be more suited for another role, for a role than others. Yes, we are all different, but that's what we bring to the table. Now, if you notice, like recently the world of this conversation moves a little bit from the term diversity to term inclusion. Because it's the analogy sometimes it's made, diversity is to invite everyone to the party, but inclusion means that inviting somebody to dance with you on the party, right? And that's much trickier to do because it's pretty easy to say, like, yeah, we have X amount of people to join us, but how do you make them actually feel involved, contributing? How do they grow, etc.? That's the motivation part. So yeah, diversity as a business case, I totally support that.
Tanya and gentlemen, my last question, that we can close off our discussion, pretty straightforward, maybe a bit tricky. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, classic one, about leading through complex times, you have probably have experienced it maybe in your life, what would it be? Would it be something plain? Would it be something difficult?
No, it would be very simple. Don't be afraid of change, and if you can move, just move fast.
Thank you.
Create better, hire better people than you really in the team. Really mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Have courage, don't worry, be happy.
For me, it would be find a mentor, somebody you can trust and chat about life.
Mm-hmm. Michal, do you have advice for your younger self? For people who are younger than you, maybe?
Yeah, I will just perhaps take more risks. And, okay, I do have one. Yeah, I got one. I wouldn't have returned to the Czech Republic so early. I have returned back home early. I would recommend myself to stay longer abroad.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Tanya and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming here.